supernatural terrorism, sentient smartphones, and a vampire voiced by Adam Sandler. This, my friends, is the kind of filmography only Sony Pictures Animation can boast, and today we're ranking them all from worst to best. This is the Sony Animation Movies tier list. So grab some popcorn and candy, remind yourself that Beyond the Spider-Verse will come out eventually, it's gonna be okay, it'll be here soon, and watch as we put our hats in the ring. These are the F-tier movies. The quality of these movies is as varied as the movies themselves, and for the absolute lowest point of the studio, we have to go with Surf's Up 2 Wave Mania. This is the weirdest animated movie I've ever seen. We've brought up Elf Bowling on this channel, and I still hold to that statement. And it's all because of just how weird the concept itself is. Making a sequel of Surf's Up, of all movies, 9 years later, is weird on its own. Especially since there's, like, no reason to have made a sequel to it in the first place. But if that weren't bizarre enough, making it double as a WWE crossover, complete with wrestlers cameoing as penguins, is just... I don't even have an analogy for that. It's just weird. And that's before you remember the part where Vince McMahon fantasizes about drinking milk from a fish.
I don't really know what to say about that.
As for the movie itself, well, take the original movie with Cody Maverick's character arc and all that, and just completely water it down. Like, make literally every aspect of it worse, from the animation, even though this is 9 years later, to the voice cast, and the recycled story, and you've got Wave Mania. Surf's Up was a genuinely great movie, so for it to be used years later as nothing more than a bargain bin DVD sale tool is pretty sad, especially considering how hard it flopped. Tune in next time for the crossover between Hotel Transylvania and the Professional Golfers Association, which unironically sounds like less of a stretch than this straight-to-DVD stuff. Wait, this was a theatrical movie? What? No, I just assumed it was straight-to-DVD. Like, you were expected to pay $10+ to watch this on the big screen? Okay, I have to say something nice. They brought Tank Evans back. That is the extent of my praise for this movie. It might seem like sacrilege to place the Emoji Movie anywhere but the bottom of this list, but hot take, this movie isn't as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. Then again, sorry to disappoint you Emoji Movie fans watching, all like 2 of you, that actually hurts its case more than anything. Like, if the Emoji Movie was so bad it's good, or even so bad it's genuinely infuriating, at least it would be memorable. As it turns out though, the Emoji Movie is genuinely just generic kids movie, the movie, with an extra layer of corporate advertising slop added on top of it, then another layer on top of that.
Gene, Dropbox is right here. That's our ticket to the cloud.
This is one of those movies that's just so unfunny that it hurts. I'm not mad or even disappointed. I'm just sadly vindicated. I wanted something I could mock ruthlessly, and I got something that's just... it just is. Okay, let's talk about the movies that have more good merits than just... yeah, let's talk about the movies that have some good merits. This is the D tier. Kicking this tier off, we have the weakest entry in Sony Pictures Animation's first franchise, Open Season 3. Similar to the Emoji Movie, Open Season 3 is just so basic. There's nothing about it that's particularly awful, at least not compared to the ones in the previous category, but it's just really bare bones. Like, the other Open Season movies are all either decent or straight up awful, both of which at least lead to them being memorable. This one's just like the most by-the-book kids movie you could ever imagine, and it just doesn't even have the same charm as the other movies. I wish I could say more about it, but I just...
Hey, ladies, look alive!
You arrest me, officer.
I changed my mind. This movie's a masterpiece, and yes, this scene is literally the only aspect keeping it from F tier. We stand the Joe Swanson stripper deer. Up next we have The Smurfs 2, truly a product of its time. There's something to be said about those weird live-action movies based on old cartoons. Love them or hate them. The 2010s wouldn't have been the same without them. The Smurfs 2 takes the novel concept from the first movie of, hey, what if the Smurfs wreaked havoc in the big old city? And, does it again. But hey, they keep it at least a little fresh by focusing on Smurfette's origins as a naughty. Once again, Gargamel and Azrael steal the spotlight and carry this movie, but that's not to say they're the only good part. They're just the best by a significantly large margin. I just wish the New York Smurfs looked less creepy, honestly. While it may be controversial, we're going to place the last Open Season film, Open Season Scared Silly, just a little higher than its predecessor. Move over, Emoji Movie. This is how you do a so bad it's good movie.
Piece of cake! I like cake!
Everything you could wish for in an open season finale is here. It's got a heartfelt opera solo by Mr. Weenie about his transformation into Lupus Homine, which in Latin means werewolf, a minute-long scene of Elliot realizing he just ate his friend's excrement,
Code brown! Code brown! Friend's poo!
the return of Shaw and his questionable relationship with his hunting rifle, and man, honestly, 2 out of 3 of those are great ideas. If the whole movie were an opera about Shaw hunting down a werewolfified Mr. Weenie, it'd probably be ranked way higher. As it stands, though, this movie just sticks out as the most absolutely unhinged thing Sony Pictures has put out so far. There's something endlessly charming about a movie that's just unapologetically stupid. If you've ever wanted to feel like you're on drugs without actually doing them, just watch whatever this is.
If you see something, say something.
Something.
Okay, seriously though, they did not have to go so hard for Mr. Weenie's solo, but they did, I respect that. Closing out the D tier, we have The Star. In the realm of movies you'd show your Sunday school children on Christmas, The Star is pretty good. The problem with it lies in the fact that it's just so boring, man. If you're gonna make a silly talking animal movie about the birth of Jesus, that's great, but go all the way with it. With how basic everything about this is, it makes you wonder why they even bothered with the whole talking donkey thing. It's a cute concept and a fine movie, just an incredibly basic one, which means we can't possibly place it any higher. So let's move on to the movies that have a little more personality. These are the C tier movies. It's time to return to the enchanted magical realm of the Smurfs. This is the heartfelt tale that finally answered the age-old question, what if the Smurfs went to New York? Well, it's simple. They'd bring their tiny, fun-loving attitudes to a broader range of people who could learn to slow down and enjoy life. It's a sweet sentiment and one that still hits home quite nicely, but nobody cares about that, right? You're here for the scene where Grouchy Smurf seduces a green M&M plush, which is truly the hallmark movie romance we've all been waiting for. Let's move from one Smurfs movie to a different one, Smurfs: The Lost Village. In 2017, they decided to bid those weird New Yorker Smurf designs adieu in favor of the old, colorful designs brought into a smoothly animated, stylized world of good old CGI. First off, thank you, Sony. Second of all, the movie looks good. This is one of the cutest looking Smurfs movies, which makes it well worth a watch on its own. Unfortunately, well, if you saw Smurfs 2, you already know what to expect from the story, but despite sharing the same emotional crux of Smurfette's origin story, it keeps things fresh by showing more of her bond with the other Smurfs, including the absolute legend himself, Papa Smurf, and even introducing some new characters. And, okay, I won't lie, I knew Smurfette wasn't going to literally freaking die in Smurfs: The Lost Village, but that little fake out scene actually had us in our feels for a second, credit where it's due. Kicking off the top 20, we have Open Season 2, moving from a movie that copied a sequel to an actual sequel. When Mr. Weenie is dog-napped by his old owners, Elliot leads a charge in rescuing him, and honestly, just that description alone should tell you this movie will at least be kind of interesting. This movie also gave us Fifi, a xenophobic, psychopathic toy poodle who plans to either domesticate or kill every wild animal so they can never indirectly cause a bald spot again. Don't worry, it doesn't make any more sense in context. Sadly, like Open Season 3, it just isn't as fun nor heartfelt as the original. It really just reeks of straight-to-DVD sequel energy, which at least I was kinda right about this time. Despite it being pretty subpar, it's genuinely a lot of fun to see the animals all come together against a common enemy, and when it comes to a good family film, all you need is a good sense of fun. It also doesn't have a scene of Elliot eating crap, which is a pretty impressive merit, I suppose. Next is the finale of a different series from the studio, Hotel Transylvania Transformania. Now, some might say that Transformania only exists as a means of answering the question of what the monsters would look like as humans. We would also say that, but honestly, it's still a pretty fun concept. It's a shame that that's like the only interesting part of the movie. Sure, on one hand, the moral of Drac learning to appreciate Johnny's more carefree mortal identity is sweet. On the other hand, it's kinda the exact same thing they did in the first movie. For the last movie, it doesn't really act as a memorable finale for the series, and it would have done a lot better to focus more on Mavis and Johnny's struggle to adapt to hotel ownership rather than the will Drac / won't Drac approach they went with. Sadly, it feels more like one last gambit to make a quick buck on streaming services. Flying, or catapulting, over to the next spot is the Angry Birds movie 2. By video game movie standards and sequel standards, this movie's actually pretty darn good. I mean, sure, it's nothing masterful, but it gives a decent character arc to Mighty Eagle, allowing him to make things right with his fiancée Zeta. The bond between those two is what really carries this movie, as is the fact that both of them are genuinely super fun characters.
What, me?
It's not the kind of movie you'd watch for the riveting plot, but it's a fun time regardless, and it's nice that they gave the pigs a sort of the pseudo-redemption arc. Well, it's not a movie you'd watch for the plot, except for the parts where Leonard skates. You'd definitely watch those for the plot. On the topic of sheer dumb fun, closing out the C tier is Hotel Transylvania 3 Summer Vacation. I gotta love the Hotel Transylvania series, man. There's something to be said for a movie series that cares about having fun and about basically nothing else. While it's not quite as good as the previous ones in the series, Hotel Transylvania 3 still has everything that made the first two great. The expressive animation, fun designs, a unique brand of slapstick, it's all here in spades, complete with a story of Drac getting back onto the dating scene. It's also great that they explored the world of monster hunting a little more, which would have honestly been fine without the Kraken who gets murked by the Macarena. I'm not saying that hurt its quality though, it's only kept from a higher spot for the fact that it's just not as good as the first two, and they definitely went a little too heavy on the psychedelics during that third act. But now we've entered the upper half of this tier list's levels, so let's get started on the B tier. To kick it off, let's hop on over to Peter Rabbit. Based on the classic storybooks, here's another entry in the mostly live-action movie genre of the 2010s. Peter and his family work to keep themselves fed and provided for, much to the dismay of their rabbit-hating neighbors, or rather, one rabbit-hating neighbor who's trying to get into a relationship with an absolute animal lover of a woman. Hilarity ensues, and honestly, watching some pissed-off rich dude having a feud with literal rabbits for no reason is inexplicably fun.
You're mine now, rabbit.
Sometimes all you need for a fun time at the movies is some good old-fashioned chaos. There's a reason everybody loves Deadpool. If you're running low on snacks, this would be a good time to refill, because next up is Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2. In one of the most terrifying plots in cinematic history, Flint Lockwood must face what we all fear most, the consequences of his own actions. It's time to retrieve the full descent of the fur to stop sentient food items from taking over the world, one adorable strawberry at a time. Which may or may not be the underhanded way for Chester V to obtain control of the device. Don't worry about that though, just enjoy the food puns and the fun characters you've come to know and love. Officer Earl is here, that's all you need to know to place this one at least in B tier. That said, this movie does honestly bring up more questions than it answers, such as, can your ideas change the world? Can your ideas change the world? Can your ideas change the... Hotel Transylvania 2 is up next. While it could be argued, or honestly just flat out stated, that Hotel Transylvania didn't really warrant a sequel, the second movie was actually pretty solid, at least as far as unnecessary sequels go. It's a fun concept to see Drax still struggling to incorporate human traditions and blood into his family, desperately hoping Dennis turns out to have vampire abilities, and going through some pretty ridiculous lengths to test him as a result. Dracula is unhinged in this movie, and that's what makes it all the more fun to watch. It's just a shame we don't see more of his creepy dad, or even more of Johnny and Mavis's new relationship dynamic, but we do get more of the most important character, Blobby, and for that this movie is perfect by default. But now, let's go way back to the very first theatrical movie the studio put out, Open Season. Honestly, the B tier seems like just about the right place for a studio's first movie. Open Season is just a nice movie, to put it simply. A domesticated bear is already a pretty neat concept, but to have him grapple with being back in the wild and to slowly but surely accept that change of lifestyle is even better, especially when you throw in Elliot, a good comic relief sidekick who still had a few brain cells at this point. This is the perfect example of a movie that didn't need a sequel, which is why it's a shame 2 out of 3 of them are in the bottom 4 of our list. The original Open Season is genuinely a pretty good movie, definitely worth a look if you haven't seen it. Rounding out the B tier is Goosebumps, starring the incomparable Jack Black as series author R.L. Stine. Think of Goosebumps as a kid-friendly horror movie. No gore, pretty much no death, just the story of a kid trying to accept his new home, bonding with a mysterious girl next door, and somehow this spiraling into a story of fictional monsters coming to life and terrorizing the locals. If you grew up reading the books or watching the show, this movie will definitely be a treat, but even if you didn't, it's still just a really nice, lighthearted Halloween movie to enjoy. It's also really nice to see Jack Black in a slightly more serious role. It gives serious Uncut Gems vibes. By no means should this guy being serious work so well, but it just does. With that though, we're entering the territory of really good stuff. This is the A tier, where we reach some of the finest films Sony has to offer. Just barely missing out on the top 10 is Vivo. Vivo is one of those movies that, while it is really good, peaks pretty hard near the beginning. But weirdly enough, that kind of works in its favor. This musical follows a Kinkajo named Vivo, voiced by Lin-Manuel Miranda, which will take some getting used to, fair warning.
Are you popping me?
Who plays as a musician alongside his owner, Andre. Unfortunately, when Andre tragically passes away, Vivo can't help but fulfill one last request for his old friend: to deliver a long overdue love letter to Marta, his old friend who went off to become famous. It's a genuinely touching story with pretty animation, catchy music, and an adorable monkey. I mean, Kinkajo. The pacing does suffer here and there, and it never quite hits the same emotional peak as the first 15 minutes or so, but this is still one of Sony's most heartfelt movies, even if it might have worked better with the shorter runtime.
Avast, me loyal audience! It be time for the Pirates Band of Misfits to kick off our top 10.
Right off the bat, this movie gets points for being one of those ridiculously well-crafted Aardman stop-motion films like Wallace and Gromit. It's nowhere near as recognizable, sure, but that doesn't take away from it being a fun time. Stop-motion and pirates is a weird combination, but for some inexplicable reason, it works. It just works. You've got surprisingly down-to-earth pirate captain wrestling between riches and loyalty to his friends and his parrot, all while you've got a movie with fun set pieces pieces that really show off why claymation is such an impressive medium. And come on, you know you've got a great movie when you can infiltrate meme culture with a scene that wasn't even in the actual movie. The gold medal of Sony Pictures Animation films, with the number 2 in the title, goes to Goosebumps 2 Haunted Halloween. Basically, this movie took everything about the first one and kind of improved it. There's no way to make us sympathetic towards the main character, like having them get cheated on during the movie's first act and subsequently handicapped by a sentient puppet. There's more of an air of mystery and urgency in this movie than in the first one, and with a bigger and better cast of friends and enemies alike to complement it. It's also the movie that brought us Mr. Chu, and that alone gives a lot of points.
Bye.
Up next is one of Sony's most iconic movies to date, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. This movie really has that signature Sony Pictures Animation vibe to it. The colorful characters, super expressive animation, and surprising amount of heart for a movie that's literally about sentient gummy bears and kind of insane inventors. Like good food, it's best at being a comforting movie in general. There are at least 1 or 2 scenes that'll stick in your head and your stomach for years to come. For me, it's that iconic ice cream snowstorm with Cal and Officer Earl, a snow day I think it's safe to say every 2000s kid was universally jealous of. But if food puns and pretty set designs aren't enough, you've always got the bonds between the major characters, like the blossoming romance between Flint and Sam, or more importantly, the slowly but surely mending bond between him and his stubborn dad. It's a movie that has something for everyone, which makes it one of the most accessible and overall enjoyable ones by default. Flying into the next spot, we have Wish Dragon. No, really though, it can't just be me noticing these similarities, right? Heartfelt movie about a poor dude pretending to be rich to win the girl of his dreams. It'd be wrong to not draw that comparison, but this movie is far from just a ripoff. From the beginning, we get to see Din and Lena's friendship from early childhood, and slowly but surely the mystery unfolds as to how things changed so much for her since he last saw her. It really is a beautiful movie, and one that has some of the most interesting protagonists and antagonists of the studio's history, which isn't even to mention how fun of a character Long is. He's no Robin Williams genie, but he's pretty darn good considering what he's up against.
And I was the best human ever!
Landing just barely outside of the top 5 is the original Hotel Transylvania. If I had to describe this movie in one word, it'd be charming. This movie does for monsters what Shrek did for fairy tales, giving them a more sympathetic, humanized paint job. That paint job is in contrast to Dracula, however, who reasonably hates humans for murdering his wife out of fear, which keeps him from allowing his daughter Mavis to explore the world freely like he promised on her 118th birthday. That all changes when she falls in love with a human man named Johnny, which slowly but surely leads to Drac reconsidering his view on humanity as a whole. It's one of those Despicable Me-esque movies that shows a bad guy becoming significantly less of a bad guy over its runtime, and also, like Despicable Me, the sequels never quite lived up to the original, even if they weren't necessarily bad in their own right. This first installment, though, was definitely Adam Sandler's finest hour and 31 minutes. Breaking into the top 5 and closing out the A tier is Arthur Christmas, one of the most unique Christmas movies around. We've seen plenty of cutesy, colorful, feel-good Christmas movies, but what about one that confronts the ugly reality of the ones left behind? This movie follows Arthur, Santa's younger son, and his quest to deliver a present to an overlooked child on Christmas Eve. It's one of the less flashy films on our list, but that makes it all the more impressive. As simple of a story as this is, it's one that really has you rooting for Arthur throughout the whole adventure. A story as simple as delivering a gift to a single child turns into a worldwide quest to make sure Christmas Eve is perfect, and it's so much better than it has any right to be. If I had to come up with any reason why it's not in S tier, well, to put it bluntly, it's not as fun as the final few we'll be discussing, but that's less of a criticism and more of a hey, please don't massacre us in the comments for this. Without further ado, we've reached the peak of Sony Pictures' lineup thus far. These are the S-tier films. Perhaps the most unexpectedly great movie on our list, Surf's Up, is first up in this section. How Sony Pictures Animation went from open season to an existential mockumentary flick about surfing penguins is anyone's guess, but man, I'm so glad it did. Cody Maverick is an aspiring pro surfer who's obsessed with being the greatest. That is, until he comes face to face with his literally washed up idol Big Z, who teaches him the importance of friendship and fun over competition. What I love most about this movie is just how chill it is. That's not even a penguin pun either. The movie just goes with the flow in every scene. It builds a heartfelt friendship between Cody and Chicken Joe, has some weirdly intense action sequences, some genuinely funny jokes.
I love being the center of attention because it's really where I should be.
And an overall message that's exactly what a lot of us need to be reminded. Sometimes it's okay to just slow down and enjoy life. Honestly, the fact that this movie is so high up is simultaneously the reason Wave Mania is at the bottom. This movie did everything it set out to do quite well, and it doesn't even need to be super popular for people to recognize how good it was. Also, Tank Evans. Mic drop. This is the point where things get really difficult to rank, but The Mitchells vs. The Machines takes the bronze medal of greatness. By all accounts, a Netflix movie about a family fighting those dang old smartphones should not be in the top 3, much less considered even better than a cinematic masterpiece like Surf's Up. But what looks on the surface like a generic family movie is one of the most heartfelt animated movies we've seen in ages. Instead of just being about the grouchy old dad being less stubborn or about that young whippersnapper getting off her cell phone, it takes both characters seriously, giving both of them sincere character arcs and development, and fleshing them out into better people who can better love and understand each other. The movie is genuinely super sincere and really tugs at your heartstrings, and that's not to mention the good sense of humor, great animation, and sound design it has, and one of the most uniquely terrifying villains in the studio's history. It's one of those movies where it just feels like it should be in the top 2 at minimum. But unfortunately for it, there's one Sony Pictures movie saga the others just can't quite compete with. But first, this video is brought to you by Wicked Binge channel memberships. You can gain access to our videos early before anyone else, plus gain access to members-only emojis and loyalty badges by supporting the channel through a membership. The silver medalist of greatness is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, a fact that should surprise absolutely nobody. With a truly one-of-a-kind style of art and animation and some of the best humor and action sequences you can find.
Let go. Be in the moment. I am in the moment. It's a terrible moment.
This is one of the most fun-filled Spider-Man movies around. Whether you're a longtime Spider-Man fan or someone who's literally only seen him on a t-shirt, this is one of those movies just about anyone can enjoy. The coming of age, the coming of superheroism, the slow mending of a broken father-son relationship, and some incredible threats to battle. This is some of the best stuff animated movies have to offer, and it's only gonna get better. Probably surprising, I don't know, literally nobody, our pick for Sony Pictures' best movie is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Take just about everything great about the first Spider-Verse movie and pump it full of steroids, and you have Across the Spider-Verse. With the majority of key players from the first movie returning, a whole new ensemble cast of great characters to enjoy, and the absolutely incredible move of making a seemingly joke villain from the first movie into an absolutely horrifying threat, this movie is an experience we can't even do justice unless you've seen it on the big screen. Every last detail of this movie is fantastic, and it's only made even better by the absolutely stellar animation. This might sincerely be the best looking animated movie I've ever seen. It's one of those things you just can't look away from. That animation is complemented by a story that gets you feeling for the villains and heroes alike, from Miles' quest to save his dad from a horrible canon event style fate to 2099's goal to keep the universe balanced, all the way down to the side characters and their motivations. We have Spider-Gwen starting a rescue mission, the alternate universe Miles as the Prowler, Penny Parker looking absolutely done with life. Seriously, she better be given a hug in the third movie. And look, I could go on about this movie for hours, but long story short, I am absolutely ready for Beyond the Spider-Verse. It's got some big shoes to fill though, because Across the Spider-Verse is one of those few movies that's just about incomparable in terms of sheer quality. Now, if you'll excuse me, I just really made myself want to rewatch a certain cinematic masterpiece, so if you don't mind, I'm gonna put on open season Scared Silly and bid you adieu. But stay wicked and let us know your favorites in the comments.